Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The views, opinions, or advice offered by this show's host do not necessarily reflect those of News Talk 780 KOH or its parent company, Cumulus Media. This is Bosma On Business with award-winning entrepreneur Mike Bosma, sponsored by Keystone CPAs. We're getting Northern Nevada back to business.
Good morning, business owners. It's Mike Bosma, your business-savvy CPA, coming to you from the KOH studio. A little soggy out there right now, but hey, if you're driving around, I would just encourage you to sit back and relax. We're going to give you 60 minutes of everything you need to know about what's going on in the business landscape. Today's installment of Bosma On Business is going to be able to give you a high overview of some trends that's happening for business owners in 2022. Or 2023, rather, and then what to do for planning moving forward to 2024. That's going to be on the first part of the show, kind of give you an overall economic thought on the good, the bad, the ugly of both the economy, different sectors, and really where we see opportunity to grow your business. And, that's, in fact, I'd say what we try and do each and every Saturday is give you, some good business insight, 60 minutes of action-packed business adventure. I think as we really head towards the end of 2023, I always have to look back and think, was 2023 a good year or a bad year? And I think, it really is, it's what you make of it, candidly, because I've had people that are lamenting the high interest rate environment, kind of high cost environment, in the high inflation that's happening with costs, trying to keep a handle on costs, and low employment engagement. So those are lack of employees, and then trying to work through getting people onboarded and plugged in and productive in the business. But that's where I wanted to talk about. There's a Forbes article that came out this week and talked about some trends that some business experts are seeing. I just wanted to just take this introduction and work through it. So this is a Forbes article that came out this week, or actually I'm sorry, September 11th, 2023. So but the number one thing was, they said the market share is up for grabs. And what's interesting when I'm looking at this, and I've seen the exact same trends. I think they've seen it across the media, and that is marketing. When things get tough, the first thing they do is oftentimes cut marketing budgets, which doesn't make a lick of sense to me. I mentioned last week that I'm teaching this education program for the Chamber of Commerce called Bulletproofing Your Business, really creating 4 pillars of strength to build your business on to create a bulletproof business. And it occurred to me when I'm looking at that knee-jerk reaction to cut advertising when sales go down means you don't have a cause and effect relationship in your business strategy on why you're spending advertising dollars to create revenue. So I'm a fan of generally having you have some brand awareness type stuff, but man, oh man, does that create opportunity for startups, right? So as big business, as Wall Street starts ramping back on the news, you heard some big companies slash their spend or advertising spend on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter. And I just laugh because invariably what happens is, this is true across most big business, is that just becomes accessible. That space becomes accessible for people like me, or people with smaller businesses, to fill in the gap, to fill in the void, and that's where I would say as we head towards the end of 2023, do you have a cause and effect relationship between your marketing spend and results? And if you do, you're ahead of the curve. And then the second part of this I wanted to talk about for a minute is employees' workforce standards are changing, and that's as I said in the introduction to the segment, I call it the good, the bad, the ugly. And, and so the trend out there right now is that more remote work is becoming the norm, not the exception. The norm, not the exception. And yeah, and I will tell you, I think a lot of people are using this excuse to say we're going to bring people back into the office as really a way to cull the non-performers. If you're out there slaying it, no business owner in their right mind is going to cut you loose. They can't afford to cut you loose because you're slaying it. So, that's where it's like, hey, if they need you that's where if you're a remote worker, make sure you have line of sight with your boss, your employer, to know, hey, what are my metrics for success in my role, in my remote role? So you don't necessarily having to worry about getting pulled back into the office. But what's interesting is, we talk about employees' workforce standards are changing. With inflation, employees now, especially with the advent of software or websites called like Glassdoor, Salary.com, Indeed, these are websites that win when employees move locations. So that they become data aggregators, and if somebody wants to know what the current trend is for their compensation, they can just plug in their job title real quick, and then then they can, okay, well, this is what the market is, and why am I not getting paid what I need to get paid? And I'll tell you, it's a real challenge for business owners because typically most businesses, they look at compensation once a year, and that database is kept up real time. So you're basically a year behind as you near the end of your employment or your evaluation cycle. And so if somebody decides, hey, I'm going to get a 10% bump if I jump ship, well, you have to make sure you're measuring that to your team, because you're like, well, you're going to get a bump anyway. It's just what it is, because we want to be competitive. And, the other thing that I think, so that we talk about trends in the workplace. So, we have, certain trends, people pulling people back from the remote work, which I say is just a way to cull the workforce, to thin the herd, as it were. And that's where, as I was explaining to a business owner, who's going through a crisis in their business, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. If when things get tough, if you don't thin the herd, if you cull out the non-performers, you're not going to be able to do it when times of plenty. So crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So just go ahead and make sure as you're wrapping up this year that you've got a clear line of sight on this thing called key performance indicators, or KPIs, what people need to be producing, and then you have an objective measure of success or not. Now, the third thing that's out there is, and I would just ask you, if you're out there and you're using artificial technology, phone lines are open, 775-852-TALK, 775-852-8255. Give me your best artificial intelligence or AI story using AI to do something cool. 852-8255. Would be curious to see some of the hacks out there. I'm working with a company now out of Southern California, and they figured a way of using AI to create engagement. So basically, behind the scenes, I guess there's a way. It's way beyond my pay grade. Behind the scenes, there's a way to see what people are searching. And they found that a lot of people are searching artificial intelligence or AI. And so because of that, then they created a way to engage with people that went from using AI. So they're using AI to create a website about AI. It's kind of crazy. But what they did is they went from 0 to 150,000 people that were active, not only subscribers, but they were interacting with the data. And then that in the month and a half went to 600,000. So you talk about changing the game. So yeah, I'm curious if you've got some AI stories out there. What's the coolest thing you've seen or done about artificial intelligence? If you haven't gone to ChatGPT, I would encourage you to do that. It is a ton of fun. And I'll give you just a little story about that. I was my youngest son. He's has been in the hospitality industry for years, and we just thought, maybe he's probably better off owning his own business instead of working for somebody. And me and my oldest son were in my living room just kind of brainstorming about what kind of business we can make for him. So we thought, wouldn't it be fun if we had this big old truck, like think the monster truck, and then they said, well, what if we did the monster pizza truck, put a big pizza oven on the back side of this thing. So we call it the monster pizza truck. And I was like, because every kid around would flock to the monster pizza truck, because not only do you get good pizza, but you get to have some fun with the monster truck. Well, what Brian showed me when I first started cutting my teeth on ChatGPT, he said, well, we threw that into ChatGPT, said, make me a business plan, and it did. And it was like, no, this is who our demographic is. I'm like, and this is just on its infancy. Before, you'd spend, hours and hours and hours laboring over a business plan. How do you do it? Well, and I think that's where really a lot of people are frustrated with, searching, Google and other search engines, because, really it's a fight through all the advertisements and SEO, search engine optimization. And now you're like, without a bunch of fluff, you could just find out, what you want, or, write me a contract, write me whatever you want. And when we come back, we're going to finish that thought on using AI and how to bake it into your business. And then we're going to talk about, the talent pool or lack thereof, shallow waters. When we come back, it's Bosma on Business, Newstalk 780 KOH.
Our house is a mess. Come on in. I'm Amber Wallen, internet comedian and host of your new favorite podcast, Fly on the Wall.
Okay, that's pretty presumptuous to assume that this is going to be their favorite podcast, by the way.
Anyway, that wasp that you just heard interrupt me is my husband.
And co-host, Benjamin Wallen.
Listen in as we discuss relationships and keeping our sweet baby kid alive.
Fly on the Wallin, wherever you listen.
Welcome back to Bosma On Business. Your host, Mike Bosma. Talking about Forbes article came out September of this year, talking about trends in the business landscape and ultimately how to capitalize on them. And I will tell you, I was talking this last week with another business owner, and they were talking about how depressing the news is, and I just kind of chuckled because I said, well, I don't watch the news, and they're like, you have a radio show where you talk about current trends, but you don't watch the news. And I said, well, I guess that's true, but I just don't believe that the news is necessarily accurate. Now, I would say, Ben Mock, he's salt of the earth. He's going to tell you the truth. But a lot of times, in fact, I remember years ago, I was on a news station, and it was during the Great Recession. And the news anchor asked me, is there going to be a double dip recession? I'm like, no. Like, why? Like, well, because that's what's trending, right? It's like, well, and ultimately, sizzle sells. So, you got to have a certain cutting edge of what's going on. And so I just found I'd rather just search for my news if I, and ultimately keep in my own lane and manage things that I can manage. And and I just think it takes all the clutter, and I'm a lot more happy. It's just depressing, what is this, blood cells or whatever you call it, so it just, they never report the good stuff, as a rule, because otherwise nobody'd listen, right? They're just trying to, so that's what I think as we talk about, some of these things. I remember when AI, when ChatGPT, as I was talking about before the break, first came out, they were talking, and we've all seen, Terminator, right? It was what is it called? Skycom or whatever, I guess. I don't know. But I don't have to worry about that. There's more people engaged and smarter, and they can figure that stuff out. If I can't impact it, I don't give it a second of brain time. Otherwise, I just live in fear. And I'm a fan of living in strength, not in fear. And so I'm like, hey, as I dove into AI or artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, I did upgrade to 4.0, paying my $20 a month. It's a little bit better, a little bit more robust. Had a student in my class I'm teaching at the Chamber. That's the second Thursday of every month. And this last time, which is a couple weeks ago now, did the class on strategy. But what was fun about that is the student was talking about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and now of course everybody on the planet is all over it. I keep getting hijacked by Bing with their AI interface. So anyway, I get it, and we all know what's going to happen, right? There's going to be a substandard technology that's going to be baked into Microsoft platform that everybody will adopt, and then the better technology is going to go to the wayside because it doesn't have an installed base of Microsoft Office. That's how it goes. goes, right? And if you think about it, that's not shocking or that's not good or bad. It just is what it is. Yeah, I remember back in the day, and if you've got gray hair like me, you remember the best program for graphics. It was a company or a software called Harvard Graphics. And this little knockoff, called PowerPoint, not nearly as robust as Harvard Graphics, but it was on the Microsoft Office platform. What was the best word processor? That was WordPerfect. What was the best spreadsheet software? That was Lotus 1-2-3. None of which adopted by Microsoft. Now all of them are dead. And like I said, it's nothing to get alarmed about. It's just, it's a kind of a rush to mediocrity. And if it works well enough and it's basically baked into what you already have, you're good, right? Actually, now with online meetings, right? Zoom has a way better interface than Microsoft Teams, but all my calls are on Teams because it's free. It's baked into my Microsoft Office platform. So, like I said, don't get overly excited about this stuff. Don't worry about the word coming to the end because, what is it? Ben Connor, whoever, is going to have to save us from the Terminator. But what I would say is this, is that when you look at artificial intelligence and as a trend, and if you haven't done it yet, I just encourage you to, and next time, if you want to write something, write a letter, write an email, ask GPT to write that email for you. It's better than you could write. And then you can edit it to your heart's content. So anyway, that's my spiff in artificial intelligence. If you're a business owner and you're not baking it into your business, you're behind the 8 ball already. So I would encourage you to get skippy with it. So I mentioned before the break, it can write you a business plan in about 2 seconds. It's amazing. All right, next, talent availability. As of August 2023, unemployment rate has increased from 3.8. Unemployed people, 6.4 million. Hallelujah. There might be some people out there actually looking for work. Some of the big companies, big CPA firms, laying people off. Now I would say, I don't get overly excited about that because, if you look in the data, I mentioned on the first segment, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Big firms, Grant Thornton announced they were laying off a bunch of people. Multiple waves, but all they're doing is culling the unproductive specialties that aren't generating revenue, and so that's and you either have to pivot or you die. So like right now, the research and there was big pieces of companies, a lot of revenue generated doing research and development. Tax credit studies. Well, guess what? They screwed that. Our government screwed that one up. Couldn't. So now, if you take an R&D tax credit, you actually pay more tax instead of less. So nobody's going to hire a consultant, pay him a bunch of money to pay more tax. It doesn't work that way. Like, I'm just going to pass on the credit this year. Thank you very much. So, but that is as a result, and so when you would be, many business owners, they would say, "Oh my gosh, unemployment's going up. The economy's going down the tank." No, unemployment goes up. Hallelujah. There's people that can fill in. Then you can be a little bit more picky about who you're hiring. Now, and I would tell you on the talent pool, it's a shallow pool yet, but it's still a talent pool. So I had an interview with a gentleman out of Texas, worked remotely for a CPA firm in San Jose. And he's gone 3 pay periods without a paycheck. Sound familiar? Remember that firm I bought back in September, right? They couldn't make payroll. And I'm just like, how does this happen? And so all of those good business practices that we talk about here each and every Saturday, right? That you tend the farm, right? Blocking and tackling. Right? If you're a service provider, you're tracking how much time you're spending on servicing your clients. Big trend right now is we don't track our time. Well, you have to track your time so you can track your costs. You don't have good cost control, you don't have good business control. And so it can get away from you. And you're like, well, how come I'm not making money? Well, you don't know. We don't know if anybody's working. So you have to track your costs. That never changes. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how you charge, by the hour, but maybe by the project. But then you need to know, and reward those that are bidding well and negotiating well, or going back to your clients like, we can't do this anymore. We're in the process of offloading or offboarding our largest client. And it's like we could not keep the agenda moving forward to make that work efficient And the client had their own idea of how they wanted to execute their accounting solutions. And they get to, it's their business. We disagreed, but we were charged with executing accounting. And I'm like, we've been doing it for a year and it's time to disengage. And God bless you. I love you guys. We're still here if you need us. But, this is more of an hourly thing, not a monthly thing, because we're executing your accounting solution rather than executing our own. And so we lose control. And I think that's where when you look at talent, and what I want you to take away is that if you can corner the market on a talent strategy, that is the cornerstone of a successful business strategy. When we come back, we're going to talk about how hard or easy it is to grow a business in Northern Nevada and everywhere else. It's Bosma On Business, News Talk 780, KOH. Welcome back to Bosma On Business. Your host, Mike Bosma, talking about how the business landscape is trending. And the genesis of the discussion is a Forbes article came out September 2023. And just, talking about trends and how at least how I see them as being good or bad or sideways, or ultimately, is there anything really bad for business? I had coffee not too long ago with a friend, and it was fun because we were talking about, it wasn't that long ago, it was COVID, right? Everything getting shut down, a crazy time, and I guess what I remember in that time, I was going through with all my friends, all my businesses that I'm honored to serve as their CPA. We talked about navigating COVID and the shutdown. What do you do? I remember just having very candid conversations with people. It's like, they're like, well, because how hard it was 3 years ago to find people. It's still hard, by the way, but he's like, nope, you're gonna lay them all off. That's how it's gonna go. You gotta lay them off. You gotta conserve cash. Sound familiar? I remember we had a buddy who had made table linens, and I was like, and he shut down because basically the hospitality industry shut down. So he was out of business as soon as the governor says select, shut everything down. So I'm like, well, hey, what else can you do with, you got a bunch of fabric and, people and sewing machines, sounds like face masks. He's like, well, I can never compete with China. And so he, just laid everybody off and, weathered the storm, and that's okay. But it was interesting because then I met another business owner who basically was not in the business of sewing things. And what she did is she created a business, and then she not only made face coverings, she made branded face coverings and got a couple major league contracts to do that. And it was on like Donkey Kong, right? And she became a multi-million-dollar business almost overnight. So, and I guess that, and then of course as things opened up, and every once in a while I'll put on a suit jacket I haven't worn in a while, and I'll dig my face mask out of my pocket, and I'm like, oh, I remember when this thing went with everywhere where you went, puke, gag a maggot. But for those businesses that thrive, then you have to decide, okay, well, now that people don't want face masks, what do I do? How do I pivot this? So ultimately in business, it is 100% dependent on pivoting, and ultimately it doesn't mean that you have to I guess walk around, always looking over your shoulder, wondering when the next shoe's going to fall. But you're always looking for opportunity, and I think a lot of times that's the fun of being an entrepreneur, where you can pivot and innovate. And you remember Amazon when it started? It was an online book retailer. It wasn't a worldwide logistics company. They pivoted. If all they did was say, well, no, our mission is to sell books. We're not selling everything else. Duh. Right? You pivot. That's the beauty of the entrepreneurial journey. And so when I look at business applications rising, right? And as I mentioned, first segment, crisis, terrible thing to waste. And all of a sudden, the United States rated 91.6 out of 100 to start a business. And although, we grouse about, every year there's a little bit, another layer of government intervention to get between your business and the business owner. Fine. But overall, it's still pretty dang good. That's where, if you ever talk to somebody who's immigrated here, them trying to run a business overseas, particularly in third world countries, it's impossible. So it's just like, hey, no, this is great, land of opportunity. But then all of a sudden, when you look at expanding your business, and as we're talking about, the amount of business applications that are rising, it is fascinating to me that how many businesses are not in business to make money? And there's a lot of reasons to get in the business. Doesn't mean that, that greed or anything like that. It's just, I've run into 2 good-sized CPA firms in the last 3 months that are going out of business because they didn't make money. And, and it just is fascinating to me. It's because ultimately that gives you the fuel to run your business. And I had a coffee yesterday morning with a business owner, and I'll tell you, I learned Ash Sobey. He's a great champion for our community, and he's in charge of. He works for a government agency to help get resources to underserved, think minority business owners in need of capital, so they can even do better than the SBA. And I met with him, and one of his clients that he got a loan to buy a restaurant, and met with the restaurant owner, and I looked over his tax returns. He's like, "Hey, do you want me to help you sell your business?" And I saw that he made zero money, and he said, "No, I make all kinds of money, but it's all under the table. They pay me in cash. I don't have to report to cash." I'm like, "No, well, actually, you do." Code section, I think it is 61, says all income from whatever source derived, unless there's an exception to it, right? You find a $20 bill in the parking lot, it's taxable to you because there's no exception. Now, nobody ever reports it, but that's a different story. So, but the reason I mention it is this. So when I said, well, to this gentleman, hard-working gentleman, salt of the earth, and I said, but you want to pay tax on that. And he's like, and he just looked at me like I had 3 heads. I go, and let me help you with the math. I'm going to help my listeners right now with the same math. I said, you should be making the size of the restaurant you are. You should be making $100,000 a year because you're not paying yourself, right? So, paying yourself and your wife, 2 people working should just generate $100,000 a year in the hospitality industry. So if you're not making that, then you really have to check your motives on why are you in business. So, but then I said, so you and your wife working here full time, plus you have a staff, but you should be making $100,000 a year. And I go, and the way it works is for a restaurant making $100,000 a year, it's going to sell from anywhere to $250,000 to $300,000, and that's what that is. So, but if you make zero, nobody's going to buy it. And so, what did you save? Well, if you saved, let's call it 30% of $100,000, you save 30, but it cost you 300. So you're upside down 270,000. So you have to report the income, and then of course you still have the audit issues and all that mess. So, but I would say for the benefit of our listeners, if you're a small business and if you're less than $1 million, it's the way that the world is trending. I did not create this situation. Thank your elected officials, but. With the regulation that we do have to comply with, it is very difficult to be a small business, man. If as soon as you get beyond you, Mr. Entrepreneur, Mrs. Entrepreneur, man, it is tough. It is tough to make a buck. So I would encourage you to grow over $1 million. So find a way to get from wherever you are to $1 million, and then you're going to find you're going to make more money, and which means it doesn't mean you're greedy. It just means you have fuel to fan the entrepreneurial flame. That's what that is. Profits fuel the entrepreneurial flame. You need that, right? You especially talk about the talent pool. You need to pay people. So that way you're not, well, I can't pay you because I don't make any money. Well, no, that's your problem, Mr. Business Owner. So go make a buck, pay your people, make and keep what's left. It's how that works. And then you have money to grow your business. And I'm proud to be a member of Entrepreneurs Organization, past president, and also that chamber program is all based on the accelerator program that really is baked for businesses of $250,000 or more to help them scale to $1 million, and really understand, basically put a business plan together in a way to get there, a roadmap. But also through EDONS, they got a grant that we partnered with Entrepreneurs Organization. So if you're a minority business or just a smaller business, $250,000, we have scholarship money so that we take some of the financial burden of that program off you. So we just want to help. Really, our passion and my passion is helping business owners. Basically navigate these turbulent waters of business. So anyway, that's just a little. I thought it'd be fun as we're kind of wrapping up 2023, getting ready to think about landing the plane for 2023 and set a course for 2024. This segment, I always give a little bit of a 411 on what's going on in tax land. And I would say if you spend any time on IRS.gov, I'd encourage you to do it. Just if nothing else, because they have some, if there's scams out there, they're going to let you know on that website. But one of the things I mentioned earlier is a R&D tax credit. But the other thing is that right now, there's a ton of fraud going on in the IRS, not within the IRS, but people posing to be IRS agents. And like one of the things that they won't do, the IRS will not call your cell phone. They don't work that way. They send you a letter. Now, so then, and there's a process then to vet whether or not they're the IRS or not, because you should be able to call, the IRS number and get the IRS agent, right? That's how that goes. So, but anyway, just so you know, because there's a lot of scams that are going on out there. And then, let's see what else. Oh, the inflation adjustment's been put out for next year. Hallelujah, inflation's finally coming back. The yield curve, the inverted yield curve is finally coming back in. It's not corrected yet. So an inverted yield curve, for the benefit of our listeners, that means that typically the shorter term interest rates are lower than longer term. The longer you have your money locked up, higher return. Well, we've kind of gone through this bump in that. If you were to look on that and, Yahoo Finance or Schwab or whatever, you're going to say, okay, this last month it just came out 3% annualized, which is exactly where we need to be. So but the other thing, for the benefit of our listeners, we're talking about interest. For years, it seems like forever, with interest rates at virtually zero, you just haven't had to worry about okay, should I be getting interest on my money in my bank account or my savings account or my business account? Well, now, because that's 5%, that's a lot of money. You got $100,000 in your account. And if it's in a zero interest rate account, that's $5,000 a year. So you have to be able to capitalize on that. Otherwise, you're eroding that because the cost of living is going up by that much or more. So, and then the other thing that I'm on IRS.gov, which is good intel, the way that they run withholding nowadays is pretty loosey-goosey. So, and you have the ability to make up any deficit in your withholding. So you can just ask your employer for a W-2, run the math. Again, all those rates are on IRS.gov. And see how you're doing, because a lot of times you're required to pay in at least 90% of your prior year tax. Actually, I'm sorry, 100% of your prior tax. If you're a higher income earner, it's 110%, or 90% of the current year tax. So you can do all of those calcs. Because before the interest rate is near zero, it didn't matter. Well, now it hurts. It has a little sting to it. So that, you want to make sure that you're not getting whipsawed. Where you're like, I'm not getting any money on the interest in my bank account, and all of a sudden I owe the IRS all this money. So just how that goes. And then the other thing that you want to just be really, really smart on is maxing out your 401k, your IRA. Get that done. Don't wait till the end of the year, because the market typically peaks towards the end of the year because everybody's dumping money in it. So do that a little between now and then. Okay, when we come back, the number one thing you need to do to wrap up 2023, you heard it here and only here, Bosma On Business, Newstalk 780, KOH.
When you have sports mixed with your pop culture, along with humor and celebrity interviews, your earbuds are enjoying The Rich Eisen Show.
Kevin Millar, we're all paying rent in Ohtani's world, right?
And the Dodgers world. Game is healthy, game is good. And, I get asked a lot, is that good for baseball? Yeah, it's good for baseball. This is definitely the team to beat, because that should be your next correction, Richie, is this World Series a bust for the Dodgers and Dave Roberts?
Hell yeah. Search for The Rich Eisen Show on YouTube or wherever you listen.
Time for new tires? Thousands of customers have already experienced the convenience of Tire Rack mobile tire installation. Here's what you do. Go to TireRack.com, find the tires you want, or get expert recommendations via their tire decision guide, where you answer a few questions about how and where you drive and receive top tire recommendations tailored just for you. Select mobile installation at checkout and let Tire Rack bring the installation to you. Their highly trained technicians will deliver and install your new tires at your home, work, or anywhere in between. Their specially engineered vans have everything needed to mount, balance, and install your tires at a location convenient for you. What would you do with the time you could save? Skip the trip with Tire Rack mobile installation. Tire Rack, great selection, always fast and free shipping, convenient installation, and free road hazard protection. Get started at TireRack.com. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.
Welcome back to Bosma On Business. Your host, Mike Bosma. Hey, if you need one of those free consultations, 775-786-4900, mbosma@keystone.cpa. One of the things that I've just found is it's always good to get a second opinion. And I've met a goodly amount of those 80,000 auditors out there, good people, brand new, know virtually little. So that's okay. We'll get them trained. But yeah, it's surprising how much people just took for granted because we haven't been audited for 20 years. So I'd say my number one thing that you need to be aware of is, when thinking of trudging into 2024 is take a look at your 2021 tax return. I know you've already put it to bed, but those are all the ones getting audited right now, guys. The IRS has been turned loose in 2021. And my CPA network across the country is everybody's pinging audit. So, it kind of reminded me what Trump used to say, China. So it's audit. So everybody's getting audited for 2021. And so you get audit protection if you amend your return. So have us, if there's something hanky that you might like, I thought that was a little funny, but my preparer, let us take a look at it. We'll look at it for free and just tell you what the good, the bad, the ugly is, so that if you got a problem, you know about it, because you can amend that thing and get audit protection before you get notified, right? So that's just like all these audits are rolling out, and there's a sense of urgency about that stuff. So that's, I guess, what I would say. Now, speaking of urgency, I mentioned before the break, like one of the things is just be thinking about maxing out retirement, that kind of stuff. The other thing is, if you've taken a financial hit in 2023, did I mention a crisis is a terrible thing to waste? Consider doing a Roth conversion. Brian Wheeler from Keystone Wealth Advisors can help you navigate that. But I'm really excited. Brian's going to be on next week's installment of Bosma On Business, and he's going to be able to share with you all the different ways you can save a buck through planning, and a lot of that is IRA, SEP, 401k, defined benefit, the whole thing. And actually, Brian and I have put together a retirement plan that is really juiced towards the employer. So that way, it's like, hey, if you have a small amount of employees, we have a plan for you, and a big part of that is not a part of a prototypical plan, is it allows for in-service distributions, and that's just what that allows you to do. Like, let's say you're a real estate professional, you go out and buy a big building, like the Bosma Business Center, something like that. Well, you're going to get this big loss in that year. Well, you can do that, get that loss, but that allows you to pull money out of your 401k, throw it in your IRA, convert it to a Roth, and then you have a pile of cash that you got for free. You didn't pay tax on that conversion. If you were putting in $6,500 a month or a year, you wouldn't be ever able to get there. So you stuff it when you're making money, and then be able to convert it, withdraw it, convert it when you're not. And that's how that goes. So it's just, and a lot of times these plans are written more for the benefit of the third-party plan administrator, so that they have assets under, because they get paid on that. So it's like, no, I just want business owners to be wealthy, and why do I want you not to be greedy, but you take all the risk, right? When I talk to business owners, every day, and we all chuckle because we all know, right? We wake up at 2:00 in the morning, and all of a sudden I send myself an email so I don't forget what I just remembered, right? I woke up in a cold sweat. Oh my gosh, I got to do that, right? Always looking over your shoulder. So that's where it's like, hey, we can help you navigate those waters. And so if you need to get that, again, 775-786-4900. mbosma@keystone.cpa, and that's where the 2021, taking a quick look at it and see if there's anything there that needs to be addressed so that you get that audit protection. The other thing is there's a bunch of people that had taken advantage of a charitable LLC strategy, call it the CLLC. They were all getting audited. So if you're swimming in those waters, you need to call me, because I can just tell you exactly what's going on. I think, fortunately, I don't have a lot of those clients that took that position. But if you did, there's probably 100% chance, maybe a 99% chance that they're going to look at 2021 and that deduction, and want to make sure you got all your ducks in a row. And then I'll just tell you, based on this, more than a dozen other audits, kind of how that's probably going to shake out. So I'm just saying, that's all we do. But and that's where I guess what's fun. The other thing, just as we're wrapping up the hour, I had a chance to get the whole Keystone team on a Teams meeting, and call it the water cooler, and it was a ton of fun, because I was able to roll out our leadership's vision, and really boil down to this is we just have more work than we can do, I'm very, very blessed. And I've just talked to a bunch of CPAs that, as they've, talked about selling their business, rolling up, that unfortunately they just don't have a practice that they can sell. So I'm also a business broker, right? So I'm just trying to help these people figure out retirement. And I think there's a unique opportunity right now to roll, these CPA firms under a common platform. Basically save overhead. It ain't sexy, but also to take care of the hiring piece of that equation. Learning how to manage in a remote environment, but. As we brought the team together and just kind of said, this is the course that we're seeing, that we really were able to say, hey, how blessed are we that we get this great group of 30 professionals across the United States, all really, really talented in their own piece of the world of what they do, and very, very blessed to be part of that. And my partner, Bob Marsh out of Florida, and just, carries the same vision. So if you, like I said, if you need some help, 775-786-4900, mbosma at keystone.cpa. Till next week, you want to tune in and get Brian Wheeler. Till then, keep that business engine humming. It's Bosma on Business. News Talk 780, KOH.
On air, online, on demand. News Talk 780, KOH.
You met Lala Kent on Vanderpump Rules. Now Lala and her friends share everything on Give Them Lala.
I'm expecting my second child. Which is very, very amazing.
Congratulations.
To say. Feels
We're
that
all
way.
with child.
You can say she's pregnant, she's knocked up, anything except with child.
Oh, I love with child. I'm going to be saying it all the time.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Yes.
6 feet, I'm with child.
Watch what Lala is talking about on YouTube or search for Give Them Lala wherever you listen.